Welcome back to Curse, Code, and Crown, a live play Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition podcast featuring a fully original world and campaign. I am the wizard Cronox, observer of time. Curse, Code, and Crown features our regular voiceover artists and improvisers, Laura Elizabeth as the Orc Count Eta and Princess Gwendolyn, Tyler Hewitt as Makka Deathcap, and Ryan LaPlante as Duncan Danno, alongside our dungeon master, the incredible Tom McGee. So get ready for an adventure including thrills, chills, and hope for a brighter tomorrow. It's time for Curse, Code, and Crown!
Once again, you find yourselves out to sea. Now, the last time you found yourselves truly out on the water in any real way, you had just escaped from Gren and the byproduct. It was the first time that a few of you, Gwendolyn and Duncan particularly, had stepped foot into a larger world of Gren outside of what you knew. And to some extent, Makka, that was true for you as well. By choice, you had cloistered yourself in your hut in the islands of Bleen and the swamps in order to best serve Jossie's will and to best serve the people of Bleen, and to serve as their gravekeeper, helping them to pass over and helping the cycle of death, growth, rebirth, decay to continue to run unabated. So though the surroundings are familiar and the orientation is somewhat familiar, the world has changed for all of you quite considerably. There's Ida as a base level, one more person on the boat with you. But for each of you, rather large sort of seismic shifts in your understanding of the world and in your own beliefs have occurred. For you, Duncan, you found a purpose outside of merely serving the crown and are now struggling in some ways, both reveling in being able to pursue justice in its purest form, but also having to contend with the feelings of duty you still feel to Gwendolyn and to Orvel that are now no longer born of simply of duty, but are born instead of the feelings you have toward her and your home and what it could all be. More importantly, you are seeing the toll that these events are starting to take on your compatriots. And though you yourself have kind of tempered your will against such things, you know that both Makka and Gwendolyn feel things very deeply. And even Ita, who you've only known for a short time, is in well over her head. And you yet again find yourself kind of the steward of a group. And of course, you've been branded and have entered the Tournament of Champions, which you still have very little detail about, but that, as far as you can tell, is something that will dog your steps as you make your way around the world. On the one hand, the duelist in you is finally free and finally able to truly flex your muscle, flex your ability, and embrace that part. On the other hand, your first duel nearly killed you. And if there's an entire league of people, and as you learned, a league that has been eager for fresh blood, waiting, you can only imagine what else waits for you out there in the dark. Ita, what should have been a fairly simple, if important to you, first accounting has instead turned into a quest. After the failed assassination attempt on you, you were left with more questions than answers. And for someone who deals in logical probability, the uncertainty of conspiracy, of cloak and dagger, is a rot that eats away at your sense of calm and your sense of balance.
Yeah.
Perhaps worst of all, the Empire of Numbers is all you've ever known, much like Gwendolyn, Duncan, to some degree Makka. Without those systems in place, you'd be very apt at navigating the world with the full power of the Empire behind you, but on your own, it is a strange new world, and as a result, you find yourself both blessed and saddled with companions, something that I think is new to you and somewhat uncomfortable, but is also very much a necessity, because without them, you would likely starve to death within a matter of days. Nevertheless, they do seem aligned in your goals and in helping you. And there's a comfort in that, because after all, everyone needs a second pair of eyes to look over one's equations, and though those eyes may not be as trained as yours, they do seem capable in their own right. And so for now, you're stuck along for the ride, having no clear leads towards the conspiracy, but knowing that your best chance is to stick with this small group in the hopes that things will begin to make sense and begin to open up. And at the very least, to protect you if those who attempted to kill you before attempt to kill you again. Gwendolyn, you regained control of your body, which was huge. This was something you had not considered was an option, and having Karen drive you around like a weird Gwendolyn suit was unpleasant.
Yeah.
But over and above that, you now find yourself, now that you're back in control of your faculties, in a rather difficult position, that of, in some ways, for the first time, being left to rule on your own. Logically, you knew this would always be an eventuality of taking the crown back when you were assumed to become the philosopher queen after your father died. But watching him rule, and as kind of you became more jaded with the court system in Orville, you always assumed you would have advisors at hand. And though you still have those advisors technically, with Duncan now in pursuit of Lady Justice's needs and demands in the world, you find yourself in the position of having to make more decisions. And this is a scary place for you. But you're also not the woman you were when you left Orville. You have had to negotiate, you've had to compromise, and you've had to make hard calls with drastic, long-reaching consequences. And I think now more than ever, the weight of the alliance of equals is weighing heavily on your shoulders, because you've chosen an incredibly difficult path, a righteous one, to be sure, one that will hopefully yield better results than what you've known. But the real cost is now yours to bear. And you feel lucky that you still have Duncan and Makka by your side. And Ita seems to have knowledge of a nation beyond yours, but the burden of leadership is now very much yours to bear. And you've begun to see what that looks like in a variety of situations. Also, of course, having realized that down here, humans are not top of the heap, and there is a lot of prejudice and work to be done. And of course, Makka, you more than anyone in our small vessel have been faced with some hard truths. What you've discovered in Bleen has shaken you to your very core. Jossie, driven mad by the corruption of the Indara processing, your own role in it, unbeknowing, but still very much a key part of the machine that helped to draw energy out of the cycle itself and process it. And of course, the knowledge that Jossie herself has become tainted and is hell-bent on the destruction of the world she once sought to help keep in perfect balance. You have answers to some immediate questions, but none to the larger question of what's to be done, aside from a small scrap of paper that Duncan managed to find for you, that has suggested that your only hope of restoring Jossie is to travel back to Orville, as indeed you did with Presidentia Umos back when our adventure began, to find a pure sample of Glomra. You're still unsure of what that all means, what the effect will have, and more importantly, what is special about this untainted Glomra. For it would seem that the madness of Jossie and the corruption of the cycle happened much, much later than that sample would have been given to Orville. So there are still some questions as yet unanswered. But having seen the dead rise and your own people become corrupted by the very cycle you sought to protect, you're in a bit of a rough spot. And though you kind of know what must be done, it doesn't really change the fact of what has been done already and how that has affected you and your people. So this is the state in which you find yourselves on this small skiff. Your sail is up, your oars are in. This is it's not a huge boat by any stretch, but it is certainly heartier than the sort of small gondolas that were used to get between the islands of Bleen. You can think of this thing as I don't know boats well enough to say this with any real certainty, but let's say a 20-foot boat. So it's got a little bit of room. There's a small cabin at the back that really is just somewhere that's kind of sheltered that you can sleep. It's not large enough to sit in. It's kind of almost a crawl space. But if someone needs to get below decks, Makka, for you, for turtles in general, sleeping above deck, just kind of tucking into your shell would be just fine. So you get the sense that this boat is probably built for visitors. As you know, many people of different walks of life come to Blean. There were some provisions already aboard, which is great. Certainly not, it's not incredibly well stocked. It's not like a Costco, but it's got some preserves, some hardtack, certainly some fresh water. Sort of you'd imagine for a day trip, in case everyone on the trip got hungry, so you wouldn't have to stop at a convenience store or anything along the way. The sail itself is a large triangular single sail, marked in kind of a brilliant cerulean blue, with the sort of insignia of the consortium of Blean. You can think of it as a friendly pharmaceutical company logo. So something that is very round and has like some very happy little offshoot lines, almost like a sun, but that is clearly a corporate attempt at feeling warm and friendly. To you, it's almost, I don't think, Makka, you would even recognize it anymore. It's just so ever present within Blean that your brain just kind of scans over it, kind of like we do over, I don't know, like an Apple logo now, where it's just like, yeah, it's just noise. But Duncan, to you, of course, based on the frustration and rage and disgust I think you feel for what you witnessed, just being forced to stare at this stupid fucking logo is just a little kick in the ass on the way out the door, The four of you have left Blean, and you've been at sea for a few hours now. The islands are visible in the distance behind you, and as you'll recall from the end of our last session, there are storm clouds that have rolled in, and so now you kind of have a still high in the sky, but a light gray cloud cover, and it's spitting rain. So just a light rain as you continue to sail towards parts unknown. I imagine, given that you all had to haul ass out of town, that you likely have some things you'd like to discuss with each other and some things you might want to catch up on. So given all of that, you do have some time together, and we won't say this is like one long protracted conversation that you all magically have, but I'd be curious about the types of things you think you would discuss during your downtime. If there's anything you would want to bring up, if there are any theories you would want to explore, and what else you think you'd be doing, given that you currently don't really have a destination other than forward. Which, Makka, I think you could probably, and Ida to some extent, but I think Ida is kind of like me if I try to drive across Canada. I know how to get on a train that will take me across Canada or an airplane that will fly me across Canada. But in terms of driving, I'd be like, oh, wow, there's a lot of turns and stuff. Where's my, dotted line? I can't just Indiana Jones my way across the continent.
Interestingly enough, Duncan has navigator's tools and is proficient with them.
Oh, that might be something you want to play with in this downtime period. Yeah, excellent. So all that to say, I think Makka would be able to identify that beyond Blean, in almost any direction, you will eventually hit land, just because... it's not in the middle of nowhere. The way the world works. Exactly. That said, in some directions, that would be an awfully long trip, and you would definitely be in trouble. So, Duncan, I think your navigator's tools would probably be helpful for determining the closest vector to landfall, so that you don't just, starve to death in the water. But that's it for me. You guys talk now.
I think Ida, Duncan, and Makka together would basically be able to figure out like where friendly or neutral land is closest, kind of, between the three of them.
Oh, yeah. But Duncan would have functional knowledge in the way that he would know what the map of the world looks like. I feel like he'd be better with the navigator's tools, and he'd have some idea of a boat because we've established that he did go out on the water and try to learn additional skills up in Gren. But he would not know the locale at all. He wouldn't know specifics. It's sort of like he'd know the continent. That's where Australia is. That's Africa, but that's kind of his knowledge.
Yeah.
So he would definitely need the locals to be able to kind of narrow that down.
And Ryan, just to tack on to that, I also think by the time you were looking at maps, but you spent a lot of time in libraries looking at old stuff, so you may have seen older things. But I think like modern Orwellian maps are likely that like weird, shitty Elizabethan England, like here's where the men with mouths in their stomachs are. Like one of those things where just all like they kind of have a general sense of land masses, but they're all kind of blobbed together in a weird, dumb way. That said, because of the nature of the work you did, you probably would have found some older stuff, but I think it's left you, with kind of like a functional understanding. And all of you had decided prior to your journey into Sprongbreck that you did want to head east, I believe, to make landfall. You had some questions about Apex and some of the areas over that way. So there was a sense of heading in that general direction. So I think that's probably where you would be aiming.
Yeah, I think Duncan, if Duncan was going to have that chat, he'd be leaning on Apex as the next target. Because basically the only two things they haven't dealt with are Apex is a series of question marks involving like what the fuck happened with Danno the Mystic and a bunch of other things that I don't think he would even necessarily bring up because no one on the boat has any answers, and Duncan is not a guy to sit around guessing with a group of people, especially if it contains Ita. So I think he'd be focusing more on getting the boat where it's going than anything else. He'd be there to kind of provide an ear for anybody else, but I don't think a lot of his stuff is kind of like, we got to save Orville, given, I've got to do the Tournament of Champions, but not on this fucking boat. And no one can help me with that because they trap me in a magic circle. And then Apex question mark is kind of where he'd be at. So a lot of functional, let's not die on a boat action.
That's fair. Yep. I like all that. Makka.
Makka would, he was dealt a special kind of blow back there in Bleen that I think having never been at odds with Jossie before, he would turn to other kind of sources of like comfort and knowledge, like the cluster, like the I can't remember what name we gave them, but the tree folk.
Root folk.
Root folk, thank you. The root folk sort of consciousness that he also carries with him through his arm. Mm-hmm. And I think would be doing sort of a lot of introspection, a lot of kind of, I guess, like existential questions and stuff like that. Like before, it was just Makka in service of Jossie. People would speak of him as like a cleric or like a holy man, but he didn't seek to like spread the word or anything like that. Like it was just doing the work for him as far as he was concerned. There didn't need to be more or less believers in Jossie or anything like that. He just knew what he had to do, and now he doesn't know what to do. So I think there's a real hollowness to that right now, where there's no fulfillment, or at least he can't reach fulfillment the same way he has all these years. That has been tainted and sort of taken from him.
Mm-hmm. Do you think he would be sharing that with anyone, or is this an internal, like, you obviously talk about kind of leaning on the cluster, which I think makes a lot of sense, particularly given everything that's happened, and on the knowledge of the root folk and kind of living through those memories. So do you think this is like almost a meditative? I think
state? It's a lot of sitting and meditating on the skiff here. He'd be open to like it's not like a leave me alone kind of thing that he's putting out there for everyone else on because it's a small vessel too. But I think that's where he would go for comfort, is sort of inward.
Gotcha.
I think Ida would be inclined to approach Makka, having had, I think, what she sees as a similar experience. So I think she just basically like go up, like sit next to Makka and say, So it seems that we have found our common ground, you and I, and that we have both been betrayed by fundamental things we have believed in. Yes?
Betrayed, you say?
Well, yes, because, like your god seems to be, your people, they like messed with this cluster,
Yes.
your god has been poisoned. It all seems to be horrible. I mean, the way you were treated was awful. And me, I mean, the Apex Institute, apparently Apex Industries, who knew, was all at the center of this, which I did not know.
I see now. I misunderstood. I thought you were speaking of Darcy betraying me. And this, it is unclear. But yes, the people of Bleen, they did betray my trust, and I was manipulated. And you too were manipulated, yes?
Yes, by the Empire of Numbers.
You were sent to Sprongbreck to die. What
Yes.
will you do? What
I
do you wish to be done?
will be honest, I am conflicted, as I do not know who was the ultimate architect of what has happened to me or to the Apex Institute. So, I mean, I suppose I could rage against the Empire as a whole, but that seems to be fairly fruitless until I have more information.
Are there those in your homeland who would call you friend or family?
I mean, yes, I certainly had colleagues, my fellow students, my teachers,
Does this betrayal extend to them? Everyone in Bleen has been taken from me, though I did not share a bond with anyone still living in Bleen.
I'll be honest, I had not considered that those closest to me would also be part of this conspiracy, but perhaps they are. Perhaps I am alone.
It is a fraught thing to consider. But know this, on this vessel with us, you are not alone.
And I just put like my hand on Makka's hand and said that is most reassuring. Most reassuring.
Gwendolyn, what are you doing during this?
Gwendolyn's kind of like I don't know. I think she's kind of like just gonna go along for the ride for now. Really, because it's like I think there's just like too much big stuff going on that she's kind of, she has no idea what the next move is.
Fair enough.
But it's like, I mean, obviously what happened, her thoughts are just like, okay, well, what happened to Orville is obviously like related to everything that's happened with the club. Like there's obviously, this is all connected. So it's like, well, let's solve one part of this, I guess. If we can.
Yeah.
I don't think she's really thinking much beyond that.
That's fair.
Is she the brooding type who would have taken over the cabin and just kind of sat there, or is she out kind of moping around doing chores?
No, she's visibly moping. She'd want
with inscrutable armor face. She'd have to be like,
yeah, she's just like Charlie Brown walking with her head hung like back and forth.
Yeah.
Just imagining like a Dark Souls soundscape of like clunk, 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 just like monsters in the background.
I mean, she's still, like, she would still want everyone to know that she's not like totally happy.
All right, so Grumpy, what's going on? You're doing a lot of moping around considering it was his god that betrayed him.
And then I just think she gets like super defensive, like, well, can't I be sad for my friend? Jeez, like you have like say who can be sad and who can't be. Like, who are you?
Well, I'm
It is
keeping...
Duncan Danno.
I mean, thank you, Makka. I'm keeping us all alive. The thing that I'm pointing out is other people who are worried about Makka have gone to Makka or spoken with Makka. They're not just moping around like they did back at the castle when they were 12.
Well, now if I go and, like, check on Makka, it's obviously just because, like, you chastise me about it. It's not even going to be genuine.
Yeah, so why would you want to help a
appear that
friend
way.
just because it's an advisable idea? Instead, you can leave them alone and stare at the floor some more.
And I just kind of look over at Makka, like, Makka, you know I'm, like, here if you want to talk, right? Like...
There is reassurance, Gwendolyn, in your seeking to take action. Yes, when the time comes, I know you will be ready to assist and provide aid. Yes.
And I just kind of like very large, like basically point like my hand, just like see, like towards Makka, like see Duncan, like the thing.
All
Like,
right, so
look, I know how I'm helpful, and I know I'm not helpful by like talking and like being all like, hey.
Well, I mean, it felt like when you spoke to him, you felt reassured at the end. So I think this one might go in that chalk it up as a win for Duncan category.
All right, Duncan wins again. That's
Wonderful.
fine.
This is a great boat. We're going to call this the Great Boat Duncan Wins.
Duncan
Duncan will take this as a victory in a quiet dad way, in that if Gwendolyn is angry, she usually starts thinking about the future. If she's moping, she doesn't do anything.
Narratively, just pointing out Duncan never takes a win in a quiet way, but yeah, sure, let's go with that. So a day passes. Night comes. The rain becomes a bit heavier, but still in that way that's light enough. And obviously, like, you're on the water, so you're kind of just damp all the time anyway. The rain is light enough that it's present and you're aware of it, but not so much so that it's any huge impediment to you.
Cool.
You've worked through the rations that were aboard the ship, and
Sorry, I just like my mind immediately went to cannibalism. I'm like, turtle soup. Obviously not. Sorry, that's what I would have had to explain my life.
I also feel like if you try and serve them up on a platter, like you saw what happened to the corpses back in Bleen, like it's gonna be a bad scene for everybody. But yeah,
Duncan decided the moment he got on the boat, if somebody gets eaten, it's Ida.
It's right in her name. Yeah, so you're on a boat, you have a tiger, you're having philosophical conversations with Richard Parker the tiger.
Yes.
And definitely no cannibalism is afoot. It'll be a very beautiful movie that's very slow. So you've run out of the rations. I'm going to say that you're hungrier than you probably would be normally, only because you guys were in kind of rough shape after your escapades and bleed. You didn't exactly leave, well fed and well slept. You kind of like ran away from a burning city as monsters chased you. So although you've been able to sort of patch up your wounds and heal up, you know that no matter where you're going or how long it's going to take to get there, you will need to search for sustenance. So not unlike your first boat trip, it is fishing time on the good ship Duncan's Win. So Gwendolyn, previously you ended up with fish inside you from attempting to eat them, and then you literally had a fish inside you when Karen took over your body. So this is a whole different literal kettle of fish. But Duncan, Makka, and Ida, I'm curious how you would go about trying to feed yourselves. Makka, you might not, only because you're kind of in a meditative state and kind of sorting through the cluster. So I don't know that you would be thinking about food necessarily. What do you think?
Makka, I think, would need to have the assurance that if he were to conjure up good toadstool, which I think is what we called goodberry.
Yeah.
That it would not just poison his comrades and turn them into Jossie zombies.
That's fair.
So I think he would look to more conventional methods as well, like fishing and things like that.
All right, fair enough.
Yeah.
I think Edith's like literally like leaning over the side of the boat and performing like a droid analysis on the fish. Just got her great club, just like ready to strike.
It's great. Yeah, you're just fishing with hand grenades, that old chestnut.
Duncan, I think, would coordinate with Makka if they were going to if Makka expressed his concerns, because they've traveled enough that they kind of know some of each other's tricks.
Totally.
I think using the toadstools as bait, he'd put together like an improvised kind of like fishing line, and then they could see essentially if they make evil Jossie fish or not. Like if a fish bites and we bring them up, are they a weird zombie or are they kind of normal? And that would probably be Duncan's move. So he would make fishing poles for, I think, himself and Makka and Gwendolyn if she wants to come play this weird fishing game.
Yeah, like zombie fish definitely sounds like one of those sci-fi movies that Netflix really thinks I want to watch all the time. So I like this. I like this plan. I like the test fish. It's a safe bet. Okay, so Duncan, I assume as the most dexterous of the party, you would likely be doing the casting. Do you guys think you'd be trying to fish with nets or with hook and line? I think we can safely say that Glean being an entirely ocean locked place, you don't find great fishing equipment, but you do find equipment. Like this is definitely it's like the roadside kit for Glean. This isn't the first time anyone has found themselves needing food. I
think Duncan would be doing pole and line because he wants to run bait for an individual fish. He would suggest the others use nets as a kind of spray and pray approach instead of trying to be subtle.
Okay. So, cool. Duncan, can you go ahead and roll me? I think I would say this is probably sleight of hand.
Okay.
You've got 10 toadstools worth of bait. You got 10 pieces.
All righty, let's see what happens then. Sleight of hand, which he's good at. That is a 17.
17. Okay, yeah. So you have a degree of success. Makka and Ito, you're waiting to club fish. Makka, would you be tossing a net? Or would you be waiting to see what Duncan comes back with?
I think he would have a great deal of interest in Duncan's experiment.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
All right, Ida, can you roll me a? You said you're using a droid analysis.
Yeah, for sure.
Go ahead and roll me an attack with that, please.
Okie dokie. All right, my attack bonus is 3. Perfect. 12.
Okay. You could swear you're seeing fish, and every time you do, you yell. Because a droid analysis is when you just like yell equations at things to like.
A droid analysis is actually analyzing like the movement patterns of my enemy.
Amazing. So you're just in full Sherlock, like imagining all the like possible fish patterns.
Yeah. There's really like complex like geometry like going
just
on.
Keep saying discombobulate over and over again.
Yeah, just like discombobulate, club in the water, discombobulate.
Those of you who haven't seen that YouTube video, look it up. You owe it to yourself. This is Tyler's gift to you.
Discombobulate.
Okay, so but throughout this, unlike Robert Downey Jr., who uses discombobulate to great effect, you find yourself just slapping the water with your club over and over and over again, and each time is with the utmost certainty of like, when you think there's one more step, and your entire body just like moves with the certainty of I will land on a step, and instead you land on like a flat surface, which honestly isn't bad. It doesn't really hurt you in any way, but it just feels like, I don't know. I find my entire
your
body feels like it
drops. Yeah.
So you have that feeling every time because like you should be discombobulating fish, but instead you were discombobulating nothing. After several slaps of the water, you start to realize that like between the gray in the sky and the rain and the fact that it's choppy water, like you're basically running a droid analysis on waves. But it was worth a shot. And I think also there was something in this for like, just trying to prove to yourself that no, I can survive out here too. Hang on.
The waves take 12 damage.
Ooh. Ooh. All right, roll for initiative. Poseidon, the god of the sea, rises. So
That was a great roll. Anyways.
Yeah. Behold the great wave of Kanagawa, your new enemy. Behold the fan art. Great. So Ryan, you're the only one who catches anything. You pull some fish in. How many fish would you want for a sample size of the fungi, or would you check the first one before you cast again?
I feel like he would want to get to the point of catching 3, because 3 means we still have 7 samples that are good for us to eat, but 3 is like, okay, was there an outlier, or like if one's evil, okay, maybe there was just an evil fish. I feel like he wouldn't be 100%, but he'd want to know the odds, you know?
Every school of fish is going to have, a couple of bad apples.
Yeah, I think also he'd want to give Makka a chance to read realistically, which would be like, oh, if the first one seems okay, is the second one okay? Is the third one okay? Like, can we establish a pattern where everything is fine? And does Makka, he'd probably want to give him more than one shot at determining if there was a problem, because
sure.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
You don't want to poison yourselves because you're lazy.
Yeah. And I mean, who knows? The evil fish could look like all the other fish until he like dances down some steps in Brooklyn and then paints his face. Like,
and if we can find a healthy evil fish, then that one deserves to be eaten. So that also would please him a great deal.
Lady Justice, I bring you this fish. If you'd like me to eat it, give me no sign. Okay, so I think with that roll, you rolled well, and also you're not like under any threat, and you're also not starving at this point. Like you're still well fed. So I think it's easy enough to catch the 3 fish. You have bait, and so you pull the 3 fish up. Makka, how would you want to go about determining what is occurring with these fish? Would you try and do it while they're alive? Would you either wait for them to asphyxiate? Would you club them? I know someone who could discombobulate them for you.
I would start
busy though.
I would start with alive, and I would use my ritual speak with animals to talk to the fish.
Oh, wow!
All right. Fair enough.
Yeah. So ritual means that I don't use a spell slot for it. It just takes me a little bit longer. So I think we got to hold it in like a net for 10 minutes while I
think we could say you start doing that while I fish.
Yeah,
we'll make
that's
it work.
true. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. You just like have a bucket. Dump the fish in the bucket.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. What does that ritual look like?
I think it is silent meditation. I think it is visualizing the animal or animals you wish to speak with, and kind of focusing on that point until you feel almost like you feel the language changing in your mouth, if that makes any sense.
Yep. Yeah, totally.
If we want to build this in for a full flavor, it's swimming in Duncan's hat, and you can hold the hat while looking at the fish. Because we could have a bucket, but I think we're more likely to have nothing. So it's just Duncan's hat.
I was being nice. I like Duncan's hat a lot more. That's great.
Yeah.
Or Gwendolyn's helmet, but I don't think she'd give it up at this point. She's pretty cranky.
That being said, there's no like spoken language for all kinds of animals. Like they speak for like movement and scent and things like that. So I think it's more of a mental connection.
Yeah. I think in this case, also so that we don't enter like super bleak, like, hi, my name's Kevin. Great. Thanks, Kevin. Slap, nom.
I mean, this is the guy who that's not a problem for. So that's
I know the rest of us could hear it. So we'll just see how much Makka horrifies the party with Kevin.
I don't think these fish are sentient. They're just kind of doing their thing. So yeah, you're seeing, I think it's fully instinctual what you're gathering from the fish. You obviously you can kind of like feel the panic of being hooked, the survival instinct of trying to get away. Also the relief at no longer being like flailing around in the air. And just a sort of a vague sense of confusion about the hat situation. Like it's a small, like ocean big, hat small. Yeah. Something has changed.
I think as long as it's maintained sort of like basic survival instincts of any kind of animal, and not a shift to that malice that I think he felt in these corrupted vessels of Jossi, that would be extremely reassuring, and I think sufficient.
Do you want to roll an insight for me there, sir?
Oh no!
That one.
Kill it. It wants to kill us all.
This is actually a
There's
pretty
a maniac in there.
Just put on a happy face. Yeah, you
Belongs to the fish now. This is the way of the sea.
The fish were robbed of armor. Now they own hat. So Makka, you don't get you obviously don't get any great insight from the cluster off that check. And unfortunately, I'll say with your crit fail, though you don't get any information from it, the fact of not getting information unfortunately triggers in you the fears associated with the loss of Jossie. And like, can you even reach out to this? Because I think the cluster meditation that you've been dealing with is an internal cycle, very much so. Also, you're out on the water, so you can certainly feel the cluster kind of in the greater like aquatic ecosystem, but it's not. Underwater mold is a much different beast than above ground. So I think there's that comfort that you already have, obviously, about having identified that you can still feel the cluster and still use your abilities. So you've got some certainty, but I think for someone who's already doubting and worried, like, no, there's no hint of malice, but also there's no hint of anything. And whether that's because you're cut off from Jossie or because you just rolled incredibly badly, Makka certainly does not know.
Yeah. Okay. Makka, I think, will just shake his head at Duncan and say,
I do not know. I am sorry, Duncan. I cannot in good faith say that this is safe to eat.
All right, well then,
sorry.
Throw him back, give me my hat, and we'll keep fishing.
No. It might have the influence of Jossie in it now. Give it here.
and he'll like reach, like saying, like, give me the fish out of the hat, kind of thing.
I mean, go for it. There you go.
Just put it down on the deck, and he'll just mace it just with his club, splat that fish.
All right. Well, I mean, awkward moment, but there's two more in the hat, so
Ida, you turn to see Makka successfully discombobulate a fish. And I think, like, you don't say anything. You just turn back to the water. Like, this is still during your attempts at it, and just redouble your efforts. Like, it's possible.
Makka will destroy those two other fish as well.
Yep.
All right. So now we've got nets, and well, I don't have anything that they can eat because we've already eaten all the food. So.
Take to the nets. I will bring fish to you.
All right, yeah, let's do this.
Makka jumps
Gwendolyn,
into the
get a net. We're going to need more of us. I feel like this is going to be impressive in a weird way.
Gwendolyn does, yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say, Gwendolyn, as much as you're enjoying sulking, now that you've been called out about it, you feel like you have to, and I've 100% done this. Usually with like a teacher, I think I've disappointed, but you just like 100% feel the need to like score a small helpful win just to prove
to be like overtly helpful in a way that I make sure it gets noticed.
Yeah, in like a fucking obviously, I'm always part of the team, like whatever. However, there that small petty little part of yourself that unfortunately was
just won't die.
Encouraged by a lifetime of shitty like upbringing and environment, is however a little bit excited that you get some fish revenge. There's just something.
100%. There's a little bit of a fuck you, Karen. Like this, fuck you probably fucking knew Karen. Like it's like really stupid stuff. Yeah, it doesn't make sense.
Fuck you, knew Karen is very good. All right. So Makka, you jump into the water. What do you do?
I cast Conjure Animals.
How many panthers drown? Float to the surface like dead fish.
Yeah.
The bounty of the sea. And now we eat. Feast on panther.
I will call this spell Good Panther.
I'm going to summon 4 reef sharks.
Oh.
And I'm going to wild shape into a saltwater crocodile. And the 5 of us should, I hope, be sufficient to corral these fish around the ship so that the nets can just fucking pull up bushels of them.
They're doing a full, climax of Finding Nemo. Just scare those fish into a net.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, my dude, I don't know what to make your roll on this. It will come as no surprise that Gygax didn't plan for Reef Shark and Friends adventures. I think maybe
intimidation.
Yeah, I was gonna say intimidation or animal handling, but yeah, intimidation makes sense.
Intimidation.
All right, let me roll intimidation for these reef sharks. Do you want 4 rolls or do you want 1 roll representing their effort?
Let's do that. But first, Makka, if you can roll me an animal handling, please.
Okay.
We'll say that determines how well the reef sharks are able to accomplish your.
Animal handling is good because it's wisdom. 13.
Cool. Okay.
Rolled an 8, and that's pretty good.
Yeah, damn it. That's not bad at all. So let's roll with advantage then on our intimidation, please.
Okay. Intimidation. Reef sharks have -3 charisma. With those big smiles, are you kidding me?
Okay, Tyler, swap out the charisma for strength mod, please.
Oh, intimidation using strength?
I feel like they're not being like, hey, hey, fishy.
I'm going to get you. I'm going to get you.
We're not so different, you and I, they say, approaching the fish.
To be clear, Dum Dums and Dice does not endorse the eating of vulnerable or endangered species.
No, that's why we're not eating the reef sharks.
Oh, yeah.
We're just eating
they're chasing fish around.
We're giving them
There's so
jobs.
many fish.
I just wanted to be clear.
We're not hunting for endangered species. We're like, I want to eat a panda. It's just being yelled from the I don't know about you, but I've always wondered.
You guys are not going to enjoy the panda hunt I have lined up for tomorrow session. It's called Panda Buffet, and it's just panda.
Makka drowning pandas for you. Again,
Oh, God!
That's all.
You are truly smart. You would use one of your bamboo shoots to breathe.
He can kill pandas so efficiently. We'll have to call the business Panda Express.
We'll make a lot of World of Warcraft players very happy. Anyway, Tyler, go ahead. But
so with advantage, yes,
because you've helped handle them.
So that's a natural 20 as a result. Then plus, that is, if it matters,
nice.
2 for their strength.
Much better than looking at fish in a hat. Okay, yeah. So describe the scene for me, please.
I think it's. I think Makka as a crocodile basically does a wide perimeter around the ship, and these 4 kind of strategically placed reef sharks, sort of almost, I guess, in each, what are they called, cardinal directions? Is that the term? North, south, east, west?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Sounds cool to me.
Basically, like that's their quadrant, and everything that I push in from the outside, they manage further in until they're very tightly managed around the ship.
Cool.
So Duncan, I'm not going to make you roll for that because it's a nat 20. So I think, sure enough, there's kind of that moment of like, I hope the turtle knows what he's, and then it's just like fish slam into the net. Ita, you suddenly scramble for your club because you'd given up at this point on your droid analysis, but now there's just fish everywhere. So you begin to discombobulate the shit out of some fish off the side of the boat.
Yeah.
We can't eat them because they're sinking. But
no, you should just smack them and they just sink down.
Oh,
but
no, she's very ready to like clutch them.
Right. Okay, in that case, I need a dex save from you, please, because I do not think Ida is that dexterous, but let's find out.
Let's see how ready she is.
13.
All right.
Not bad.
You lose 4, but you get 1, and you decide not to tell them about the other 4. Like any good, boastful fisher person, you're just going to claim first try.
I'm going to tell them about the ones that got away.
Hey. Meanwhile, Duncan, you're able to pull up a good haul of fish. Question for you, though, sir. You have the rest of the mushrooms that Makka was worried about using. You, of course, have mentioned kind of wanting to see how he was thinking about all this sort of stuff before using them. Would you keep those, do you think, or would you dispose of them?
I think he would dispose of all but 1. I think he would hang on to 1 because if there is a way for this to be like a tie-in to Jossie, then it might be useful if it is corrupted.
Cool.
I think he would ask him though, because the last thing he'd want to do is accidentally put like something that could be tracked, like in where it's like the evil god who's taken over the world. I'm gonna wear the beeper. It's like no, you don't fucking do that. So.
What if I want to order a pizza?
Yeah, I think when Makka came back, he'd be like, I think there might be some value in having this around if it's corrupted, and that we might be able to put it in something or use it for something as a way to contact Mad Jossie. But I don't want it to be traceable or something that could lead Jossie to us. What do you think, Makka? You're the closest thing we have to an expert on this new version of your god.
I have always felt a connection with Jossie. I have always taken Jossie with me. This tracking that you speak of. Jossie could find me, you, any one of us at any time. She is the god of death.
Well, do you feel, for lack of a better term, crazy Jossie right now?
If I close my eyes and try to reach out to Jossie, what happens?
It's a little bit like when you have like gum damage or a tooth that hurts, where you're just kind of like, I haven't hit, like literally, obviously this is a personal experience I do all the time. If I've got a bad toothache, I'll be like, does it still hurt though? And then I'll like poke it with my tongue and be like, oh God, my jaw. Oh, it still hurts. And it's a little bit like that for you. You reach out. Interestingly, again, you've got a sense of where you are is fine. But when you specifically go to that, in the kind of in the distance almost, you can feel the madness and the rage. And the closer you get to it, you can, I think, start to realize that geographically, by being far enough away from Jossie, you've been able to draw on kind of that energy for a time now, thinking you were like directly connecting to her when you're actually just kind of hitting the fringes of what Jossie is. So because you're now, I think, reaching past that and specifically being like, I need to know what she is thinking right now, that's when you start to get the actual hit. That said, there is a comfort to the fact that there is still that kind of aura around her, and there is still the cluster operating. It would seem that, I mean, obviously life still exists on Gren, so the Glombra isn't totally fucked yet, but it's on its way.
Okay.
I think of it like it's almost like a dark storm cloud on the distant horizon. Present, scary, but not like...
Right. I think because he reached into that cloud, he snaps his eyes open and reels a little bit and says,
there is that same madness and pain, but it is distant.
All right, so we may as well hang on to this if there's not a direct line. Is there a term you want to use for this, for lack of a better term, but twisted or perverted version of Jossie?
Tainted.
Do you want to just refer to her as the Tainted or Tainted Jossie? I just want to be sure.
Tainted Jossie. This is not how she will be. It is how she is now. And we will write this and fix it.
Correct, my friend. But first, let's eat a boatload of fish.
And with that, you settle in to a meal together. And despite the danger of the tainted Jossie sort of in the distance, the threat of the Sinkai, the questions about all of your various situations, and so often in spite of yourselves, the four of you actually share a rare moment of peace. We're able to relax ever so slightly as you eat the bounty of the turtle and his imaginary friends.
This episode of Curse Code and Crowd Sound was mixed and edited by Laura Hamstra, and the campaign was created by Tom McGee. Our original theme music was composed by Landon Knoblock, and Curse Code and Crown's logo was created by the brilliant Decapitated Markers. If you want to follow our players or our DM on Twitter, you can reach out to Laura at ELHamstring, Ryan at @RyanLaPlante, Tyler at Tyler_Hewitt, Tom McGee at McGeeTD, or you can message our whole company at DumDumDice. So please, join us again for more Curse, Code, and Crown!
Dum-Dums and Dice has to give a special thank you to the supreme beings of our Patreon at this time. Christian Menicola, the Half-Blind Prophet. Christopher Little, Sue One, George Dolby. One True Artistry, Orion Birchfield. Lord Abradovic, Noel Lewis, Scott Garland, Anthony Griffin, Benjamin V, Gavin and Abby McDonald, Cade Peters, Richard Cranium, Anna Zed, Eric Williams, Logan, Fire Unfriendly, Acrix, Cameron Ezel, Grandma Likes D&D, Alan, Austin Nut Powers Fry, Stabby Stranger, and Jill and Noel LaPlante. If you want your name to be added to this list, you can join our Patreon too at patreon.com/dumdumdice. Thanks to them, and a little bit of thanks to you.